Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. If you saw my video from yesterday, there was, I forget what the title was. I'll go look it up in a second. Today is Friday, the 25th of April, I'm going to guess. 25th of April, bam. It's a pretty good guess, considering how little I knew it was in the 20s, so I guess it's not. Um, and I knew it wasn't, well, anyway, not that great a guess. But I wasn't sure. Anyways, um, you saw my video from yesterday. Trump was saying that they're having talks with China. And then his Treasury Secretary says they're not talking. And so that was desperation, right? Like he's lying to you about having talks because the CEOs of Target and Walmart and some of these other, major outlets came in and talked to him and said, hey, look, we're going to have empty shelves and really high prices come summer. And he realized he didn't really know what tariffs were going to do. I mean, that's how bad it is, you Trumpers. He had no idea that this would be the effects of tariffs. Right? If you're going to play hardball with somebody, you better make sure you have the leverage. And, Trump is a deceitful bully and just a bad, person in his negotiations. And he's bullied people he's had power over for years, vendors and the rest. Like I've known about this since 2016 election. I went to a barber in Vegas who was Republican. He had Fox News on all the time. And he was saying, this is during the primaries. It's like 2015 ish. I was actually 2016 before the election. And he said to me, and I think he voted for Trump, this guy. But he said that in Vegas, the reputation that Trump had, and he heard this from all these various people, some of the vendors themselves. Barbers are the bedrock for male gossip. And he said that the vendors said Trump Tower was always screwing them. They wouldn't pay their bills. They would renegotiate. They'd only pay half of what they owed. These things, all the stuff we've heard about Trump later on. And so, that was to me a legitimate source. And we just know from the way Trump is, the way he's behaved as president, and he isn't a fair person. He's always screwing people over when he has the position and power to do it. And so he thought the tariffs were something he could use to do this kind of art of the deal stuff, but he didn't know, like you have to understand two things about this. One, China's going to suffer and America's going to suffer. So if you're going to impose high tariffs on China and they don't blink like they did, and of course he didn't know the history of China either, that they have this whatever the one of those guys Mao or somebody said, never bend your knee or never we're never going to bow down before these guys again because of what happened to China. Like that's why they have a communist rule, because this is like just like what happened in Iran. Like you want to say China sucks, and people want to say Iran sucks, but we made them suck, right? England made China suck because they did them dirty, right? You do something like that, like they addicted the Chinese military to opium, and then they went in, they screwed them over. And then, all the things that happened for them, they were in a weakened position in World War II, where Japan had to go and apologize for the stuff they did to China. And so, Iran was Operation Ajax, where they took out Mossadegh, a leader. What they've done to Libya recently, what Obama and them did to Libya, is similar, where you wreck a country. You turn it into, you take away the government, what they're doing to Syria now, right? And then it goes full, like it gets all primitive. It gets all, in this case, a religious theocracy in Iran and communism in China. But that happened because of the dirty dealings of England and things, and China's still pissed about that, like I said. Like they're not, going to bow down before this bullying. So he should have known that going in. Of course, Trump doesn't know stuff, right? And so, not knowing the history of China and what their leverage is that the American people have much better ability to complain and show displeasure. And, a big part of your presidency all your Republican support is your popularity. As soon as you lose popularity, those MFers, those Republican, rhino Republicans, all those people who, Trump is disparaged, they don't like you, right? They don't want you. As soon as your popularity goes, which it has, we'll show you it's plummeting. He's whining about Fox News polls even. As soon as your popularity goes, which it's inevitably going to do, America wasn't up for, they didn't sign up for higher prices. They thought you were going to bring in lower prices, right? Like it's that simple. And so when China, when you put these tariffs on, it was going to raise prices and it was going to diminish supply. So there's going to be empty shelves and higher prices. The American people aren't going to tolerate that shit, right? And so, he didn't know he didn't understand what's going on because he's stupid. Like he's not thoughtful, he's not curious, and he thought he could just bully these countries, and it turned out not to be the case. And so now,
President Trump is lying. Just this moment, a spokesperson for China's foreign ministry saying that as far as he knows, China and the United States have not held any consultations or meetings or negotiations on tariffs. And the idea that China and the U.S. have been engaged in talks, which President Trump has been asserting, is, quote, fake news. But
the Chinese guys called fake news on Trump. Like, can you imagine how much they're trying to humiliate this guy? They called fake news on Trump. Listen to this.
That China and the U.S. have been engaged in talks, which President Trump has been asserting, is, quote, fake news. But
he called it fake news. The Chinese Minister of Commerce, wherever this guy is, said that this is fake news. So Trump is saying, like, that shows Trump lying and being desperate. They're not even negotiating yet, and they're already calling bullshit on Trump. Like, who knows what they're going to do? I mean, like, it's kind of funny, but we're going to suffer, like, if they, like, who knows what kind of deal is going to come out of this? Like, it can be a worse deal, like a much worse deal than we have in terms of the trade deal. And we still might get higher prices. And they know they can undermine Trump's credit. All they have to do is, again, they have their own suffering to deal with. So they have their own interests at stake. But they have a plan here. Trump doesn't have a plan. Trump's just an impulsive piece of shit, right? He doesn't know what he's doing. That's the thing. Like, the Republicans could say these tariffs are actually a good thing. People who are diehard Trumpers, people who, want to say that there's, whatever, that these tariffs could work. And the American people just aren't willing to suffer. So there's that element, right? You could be doing the right thing. Like, we have to deal with China. China's a real problem. Like Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful said, like they're doing underhanded business deals. And everyone's just kind of let it go because they've been, they're buying land in America. I mean, China's a real problem. But, Trump's solution isn't a real solution. And the American people aren't going to tolerate his solution, and it isn't going to end up solving the problem. And that's the thing. You could say, well, he figured out the right thing, but he didn't level with people. He's just all over the place. He says different things. He doesn't stick to his guns like he says he does. And so he isn't the guy either, right? Like, let's say we needed to deal with China and tariffs was the way to deal with it. You don't do it the way you did it. Like, it has to be some sort of orchestrated plan. Like, he just, all right, I'll raise them 125%. Like, he just comes up with these arbitrary numbers. It isn't like he's got a team of brilliant economists who have figured out a solution here. And if you stick to the plan, it would result in our, the betterment of America long term. That wouldn't be the case either. So he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. And China, he's just totally overmatched here. And we don't know what China wants to do. Like, if China wants to take America down, or, they can do it based in Trump. Like, they can totally, blame Trump on everything here. And, and it will be his fault, like, because he's just a moron. And so they're not even willing to sit down and talk with him. He's already cutting the tariffs, he's negotiating against himself. I mean, he's failing, right? Even the stuff where he was supposed to be good at, the art of the deal. Like, he isn't even good at that, right? And so
President Trump repeated his claim. Here's what he said when asked about it this morning.
Clarify with whom the U.S. is speaking with China. They're saying it's fake news that trade talks are happening.
Well, they had a meeting this morning, so I can't tell you. It doesn't matter who they is.
It totally matters who they is. What are you talking about? is the they Sweden? Because like who's they? Who's they is I can't tell you who they is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who they is. It totally matters who they is, right? It's got to be China. It's got to be higher level people. And it's got to be you. Like your guys are talking like you've done this bullshit and you have your own guys. You're like shitty guys you've brought in who are negotiating this deal. You're supposed to be the art of the deal guy. You're not even going to like, everything's falling apart with these fucking goofy ass tariffs. And you don't know who they is. Well, it's not important who they is. Like what the fuck are you talking about, bro? They is very important.
Well, they had a meeting this morning, so I can't tell you. It doesn't matter who they is. We may reveal it later, but they had
Of course you're going to have to reveal it now.
meetings this morning, and we've been meeting with China. And so I think you have, Jeff, as usual, I think you have your reporting wrong.
No, you didn't have reporting wrong. China said you're fake news. China said you're fake news, that what you're saying here is fake news. And if they're negotiating with you and you're getting killed in the polls and Americans are going south and, you know, Walmart and Target are showing up at your office going, what the fuck? And this all's happening. And they come out and say it's fake news. You're like, oh, well, we're meeting with China. We're getting it done. Yeah, we're getting a deal done. Yeah, everything's going to be fine. And they're like, we're not meeting with them. That's fake news. And using the term fake news. Like they're fucking you right now. They're fucking you right in the fucking right in front of everybody. And so that's not, you know, like he's like, yeah, we're meeting with them. No, yeah, we're meeting with them. It's like, you know, it's like some guy claiming he's dating some girl that's way above his station, right? Yeah, I'm definitely dating her. I'm dating her. You know, go ask her I'm dating her. She's like, who's that guy? You know, he's telling all his friends going out with a date with, you know, some whatever it is, head cheerleader or something, right? And she's like, I don't know who you are. Like, so, and so it's really bad.
We should note that the communist Chinese government has a long history of lying. Although, anyway, while the president...
That was a great moment. I saw this last night. I stopped here because I knew it was going to be great. Jake Tapper is one of the guys, he has actually a sense of humor. As, you know, much as I make fun of him for being somber. But that moment where he's basically saying, you know, Chinese government lies, but also Trump.
long history of lying. Although, anyway, while the president...
Anyway, Trump being a deceptive. Like you can't, he's saying you can't trust either party, which tells you everything you need to know, which is true. And you can't trust this guy either because he works for fake news, CNN, which isn't fake anymore because Trump's unfaked them by giving them real news to report. Like this is, you know, just all this stuff that's happened. And I said, you know, F you, Trump, for making fake news real again by giving them the exact thing that they wanted. The mainstream media, this is what they've wanted for 8 years. They've wanted to say everything that they've said about Trump to be true. All their obsession with Trump, all their Trump derangement syndrome, which goes both ways, we know. But there's Trump derangement syndrome. They're making Trump the center of their existence and telling you that Trump was going to destroy America and him finally doing it. They are in heaven. They are in frickin' heaven.
It continues to assert that negotiations are very active with China. It appears the U.S. is no closer to striking any sort of trade deal. What may be even more telling is that U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said yesterday that it could take 2 to 3 years to fully rebalance trade with China, which they say is the goal, or at least one of the goals of this tariff.
It's not going to happen. Like, what are you talking about? It's over. You fucking lost. You lost, and American people even get pissed yet. And that's if China, like, makes any kind of deal with you now. There's no, like, right now, all they care about is saving face. They need something to make it look like Trump wasn't a complete bonehead. They need to show you something that said, hey, look, Trump was right. We got a better deal. And so that the Trumpers can, you know, say to all their friends, no, look, you don't need to know. You fake news, all that shit. Like, it's just about giving something. And they might not give Trump anything. You know, I don't think they are. You know, I know very little about this whole thing, you know, but I know more than him. And we now see how it's going. If they're calling fake news on him, right? See, Trump's desperate and China isn't. That's the difference, right? When you go into a negotiation, and now Trump's desperate. Because Trump put all these tariffs up. And then they were like, oh my God, the tariffs are a fucking disaster. And he said, oh, I'm not taking them back. I'm not doing any of these things. I'm not renegotiating. And then he had to get rid of all these tariffs all across the board. And all this shit he was talking to Canada and all that stuff in Europe. And he had to make a 10% across the board tariff, which he's going to have to reduce. And then he's going to think he's going to renegotiate with all these countries. But they're like, he's just all over the place. But then he was like, all right, China was the only country that hit us back. This guy came out and said, don't hit us back because we'll go even more on you. And so they had to go after China. And then Trump said, well, China was the goal all along. And so we had to back down on all these other countries because he just went too high in his fucking tariffs and his math was off and everyone was calling bullshit on him. And the other countries like, oh, this guy's a fucking chucklehead. We'll just wait this out, right? Well, this guy's hanging himself. They knew what was going to happen. They knew what's going to happen politically for him in America. They knew what's happened in the markets and all that shit. Markets are plunging and, he's losing. Like he's taking the freaking heat for this. It's his, it's the Trump depression, right? So they all knew to wait. So then he had just China. Like he had to get something out of China. And he realized they're not desperate. They're not desperate. And now he's desperate. So, like, this is bad, right? When you're in a state of desperation and you have to, like, his whole presidency's hanging on the fucking balance. And he's got this other stuff imploding with the military and it's dope there. Like, he's taking heat everywhere. And even Fox News poll says the guy's a fucking joke. And, you only have your first 100 days, right? He's got his first 100 days of his presidency. And that's when you get everything done. You come in with momentum. And then the American people are like, oh, you're either doing a good job or you're not. And the first 100 days are a fucking disaster of the worst kind for Trump. And, even if he was a genius, like the Trumpers believed, you have to win people over. You have to do it in a way that the people get it. You can't just go in there and do good things and not explain them and not, do them in a way that the American people have confidence in you. Like it's the same thing with the Defense Department when the fake Christian Barbie truther came out and said the whole Pentagon's against him and they were his guys. But the whole Pentagon, you have to win over the Pentagon. You have to win over the American people. Like you just have to do it in a way that, you got to get people on your side. You can't be like, fucking, fuck you, I'm doing this anyway. I don't care if you like it or not. That doesn't work in America, right? And so then he's going to be isolated on an island. The Republicans are going to start bailing on him. And they're saying, look, if you do this, we're going to have to, go impeachment or whatever. Imagine if he gets impeached by the Republicans because they don't like the guy. They've been wanting to get rid of him forever, right? They know he's going to get killed in the midterms. And so, this is like him just sucking. Like, as much as they want to think he's playing 5D chess, the stupid Trumpers, even if he was playing 5D chess or he understood things, that he's got to sell it. And he's a salesman. And he couldn't sell something because he doesn't know what he's selling, right? He just said terrorist is his favorite word, right?
Situation. Let's start our coverage today with CNN's Caitlin Collins at the White House. And Caitlin, first of all,
she's all happy. Look how happy she is.
Jeff was doing there was quoting what the Chinese were saying, and he was quoting them accurately. What is the Trump administration telling you about this back and forth between China and President Trump?
Yeah, Jake, that wasn't some anonymously sourced report. It was the Foreign Ministry spokesperson and the Commerce Ministry. We're hearing from them on the record in this regard. Now, maybe there's some nuance here in who is doing the negotiating, because the president was saying that the teams were meeting today, the U.S. teams and Chinese officials. He declined to say which members of the team were going into that. He said maybe he would reveal that later, but did not ultimately say.
Yeah, we heard that all, Caitlin. Thanks for re-explaining a simple fucking sentence to us. I've heard this quote from him somewhere. I was going to play his quote. I had the quote, just the quote, like I had the press conference. And at the end of it, they dropped this China thing on him because he's meeting with the Norwegian president or whatever, prime minister, whatever he is. But, it's not hard to understand. We heard him.
Essentially, what Chinese officials had been saying in response to the president saying that there were active negotiations happening every day is that that's not how they would describe it. No active negotiations, much less anywhere close to an agreement between the United States and China. And so that's really the question here in terms of.
See, he's got to tell people we're close to an agreement. My thing is working, and they're like, no, it's not. We're not. Like they're just pummeling the fucking guy, right? They're just taking his pants down, and fucking him right in front of everybody. And so, like I said, he's going to get bitch slapped by the Chinese. It's already happening. But it's going to, at some point, he's going to come out and they're going to say they got a deal. And everyone's going to dissect the deal and show that how it isn't a deal. And the American people are going to be like, oh my God, we just fucking averted a disaster. Somebody, lock this fucking guy up, right? Make sure he can't do any more damage. And he's going to curl up in the fetal position because he's got nothing else, right? Like, these are the things he promised. The immigration thing's a fucking disaster because, if he didn't deport that one guy to prison, it would have been going better. But there's lots of things that are going to come out of this, including higher prices and not, people not here to pick the agriculture. And, like, he's just doing things in a sloppy fashion without understanding the consequences. Like, he doesn't understand consequences because he's never had to face them. With all his bankruptcies and all these things, he finds a way to avoid, like, he's done criminal shit and not gone to jail. And he's done, he's made poor economic decisions with his companies. And he just goes bankrupt. He never has to deal with his consequences. He just bullshits his way out of it, right? Like, he just thinks I can bullshit my way out of anything. I mean, we had 4 years of lawsuits and criminal charges against this guy. And, he's just like a Teflon. He just, they don't stick to him. And so, he has no idea that this thing, what it ultimately can do.
Here in terms of what this looks like and whether they're actually making any real progress. We've seen Wall Street looking at the president's comments. Anytime he strikes even a little bit of a softer tone on China, the numbers go up. But there's a real question of what that looks like.
So that's what they're saying. You got to cave. Wall Street and the American people are, and the government, the businesses are all going, you got to cave. You got to just fucking make this go away. It's a self-inflicted problem. You have to make it go away. And so, my dog we've had massive tick issues. I have to cut the grass where I have an update. We harvested all of our, I'm not going to do it today, but I had a kind of big headache last night. It's gone away, which I feel better, which is good. But I had a headache and then went away and then came back. So it's like these, the thing about migraines is it's not the pain, which is sucky. And the pain for my migraines has gotten less over the years. Like, I can function with the pain. It's the lack of serotonin. Like, the things with migraines that separate them, if you have a real migraine, it's that there's nausea, like it involves your gut and your nervous system or whatever. Like, sometimes I'll get like chills or just whatever. And sometimes your vision with the aura. And there's less serotonin, which is just, you feel depressed and bummed out, like you lose motivation. So you're suffering pain, and then it's just the other things. It's like, some kind of, it's just a bad feeling. But then the next, like the day after the migraine, which I anticipate today, there's a boost, like there's a higher level of serotonin. So it's kind of like a little payoff. But anyways, trying to keep my dog in this area where he's not. Stay over there, buddy. Stop. I see a tick on him. I got to stop. Okay, so I had to move my dogs to a secure location. So Buddy, I was talking away, and Buddy loves to be on the bed, and with me here, he could stay on the bed all day. Sometimes we're going outside and have to come back, and he, just wants to sit here. For whatever reason, Farley used to like to do that. Tulsi likes it, but if she hears a noise somewhere else, if something else is going on, she runs out. And she wants to be where people are and, whatever's going on. It's like she wants to be where the action is. Like, if I go anywhere, like wherever it is, and she wants to be there looking at whatever I'm looking at. Buddy, he just likes to sit up on the bed. Like, he runs in there as soon as I wake up or whatever. And so that's that. But Tulsi was sitting on the floor, which was good. It's like sometimes she likes the floor better. And Buddy was sitting next to me, and I look over, and there was, like, he's been chewing on himself, right? And he knocked a tick off himself. There's a tick on the sheets, and then there's like dog drool. And so I moved him over to where the comforter is, because the comforter is white and the ticks stand out on it. But he keeps on moving around, and then I found another tick on him, and I'm like, You guys are, you guys are in quarantine until I cut the little grass. But anyways, I forgot what I was saying here. Let's just go.
Looks like, and we're starting to see people warning about the longer this goes on, the more damaging it could potentially be. We saw that from Republican senators. We saw it from people like Ken Griffin, the billionaire, who is one of the Republican Party's biggest donors, if not the biggest donor. And so
we don't know what. See, I don't know how this is going to go in China, right? China, and they have a totally different. I mean, they've their whole thing is they've tightened up, and they've been in martial law state for a while, and there's God is illegal. I mean, it's just a fucked up place, right? And, they don't respond to the complaints of their people the same way. Every country, every ruler, every elite, they're worried about the mob. And they have to secure their mob. And China has figured out a way to secure the mob, the people. America has this idea that, well, we'll just let you be happy, and then we'll threaten to take away your happiness. Like, that's how America deals with it. Oh, we'll give you guys a good lifestyle, and then we'll threaten to leave homeless people walking around, so you see them, people begging for money, and we'll, show you what it's like in other countries. And whenever you start bitching too much about the system, we'll be like, yeah, you want to be like it is over there, and so, and the problem with the American version is that you got to make sure that you keep people happy and don't take away large chunks of their lifestyle, but they have to do that now, right? And the Americans, they have to deal with that. And Americans have guns and things, and, we have a totally different attitude where, Americans aren't broken. They haven't, they break you in these other countries. That's why people come to America. They beat you down and break you and say, I know it's unfair, tough shit. Eat shit and like it. And don't even look at us, right? So, the level of oppression is different. And so whatever's going on in China, they know that America's going to break first. We're softer, we're more entitled, and we're more whatever. We have more opinions, we have more whatever it is. We have free media, where they've suppressed these things. And they can blame everything on Trump, like I said. So they can squeeze Trump as much as they want to squeeze him in America. And, who knows what they're being told to do, because they have, the whole thing is, America's going down. It just is. It's divine order, beyond all the controller shit and elite stuff and all this stuff. It's God's will. I said in one of my videos, why would God want to save America in the title, and not one person could come up with a real valid, thoughtful answer. I mean, no one even disputed it. Why would God save America? And so if you don't have God on your side, and I, believe that I understand the plan here, the divine plan, based in the Sajmark teaching, which really basically spells it out, that the system's going to come down and people are going to suffer. They're going to be motivated to be better, lamenting and, beseeching God for forgiveness, realizing, I can read that Whispers message here. Okay, so this is the Whispers of the Brighter. Here it is. I got the wrong thing. Here it is. Oh, okay. Got to make it bigger here so it's easier for me to read. So this is the Whispers of the Brighter World. One of the things that's called prophecy. So this is this French woman who doesn't speak English, who gets these messages in French from Babaji, the second master of the Sajmark system. Most of them. And she gets them from other saints and higher developed souls, but mostly Babaji. Wednesday, February 28th, 2001, 9 a.m. In a quarter of a century, the Earth will experience a major turbulence. So that is, if it was to the day, it would be February 28th next year, 2026. But it's probably, 25 years or so. It's like one of those. So it could be any time now. So this was given in 2001. And so sometime between 2005 and 6 here, the end of 2026, the end of 2025, some period between those two. In a quarter century, the Earth will experience a major turbulence. That will be a beginning of a cycle which Earthmen will find difficult to go through. Fire will literally beat down on certain parts of the world, whereas torrents of rain will pour over others. Cataclysms will follow one another for many long years, keeping men frightened. Many will turn towards a supreme God beseeching his forgiveness. So this is what I'm referring to. So, And this is a part of a bigger plan that was revealed in one of Babaji's books, Reality at Dawn, about what had to happen in a much more abstract way. And then there's these whispers messages that are much more specific. And this is the big one in terms of where we are now. So in 25 years, which is up now, in the next year or so, he's saying a major turbulence will happen. Something will happen, World War III. He's talked about Atom ruining the world, ATOM, and, its demonic power will be unleashed by, these atomic bombs and shit, right? And so, turn towards a supreme God, beseeching him for forgiveness, which is the necessary motivation that will be needed. Because otherwise, people will not change their ways. We will not, go from our routines, our lifestyle, our entitlements, all of it. People won't turn towards God. And so we have to suffer consequences for our aberrant behavior. So let's go back to it. Fire will literally beat down in certain parts of the world, whereas torrents of rain will pour over others. Cataclysms will follow one another for many long years, keeping men frightened. Many will turn towards supreme God, beseeching his forgiveness for more and more aberrant behaviors, as well for the maltreatment imposed on their nourishing mother, the earth. So all the bullshit that we've been doing to the earth and all the deviant behaviors we've been doing, we're going to be aware that they've caused these consequences, right? And the people that are, survive will certainly be aware. The people who aren't will be just go into some catatonic state. But, people are kind of aware and we're just not dealing with it. But when we realize, oh my God, we fucked up, right? The failure to respect the elements will lead to events generating terror among the population of the end of the century. So that'll be the end of this century, 75 years. In future ages, the present layout of the continents will be shattered. Maps will need revising, yet the creatures inhabiting the planet will have far more than enough to do in order to survive rather than dealing with those details. Atom, ATOM, will turn against mankind, who will not have been able to harness it, and its lightning power will be devastating. The time for punishment for such conceit will take place as hard as it can, and men paying for their ancestors' glaring mistakes will suffer without having any control over the situation. The transformation of this planet must go through all these cataclysms in order to be effectively completed. Babaji. So this is a necessity. It's there's consequences, but there's a transformation. Like there's just a metamorphosis, right? This has to, the current human worm-like creature has to bloom into a butterfly kind of situation, right? Spiritually, we have hidden spiritual talents and abilities buried in our DNA on a physical level. Babaji talks about having a biological mutation to go with the spiritual evolution. So we have that buried in us. We're created out of test tubes. This version of human beings is created as, slaves, and, sloppy job was done by the whatever alien race that did that for whatever slave labor. I mean, you can believe this shit or not. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. It's like, there's some evidence supporting it. I've gone through this in the past, but whatever. But there's inside of us, there's a higher developed being, which was documented by the saints and higher developed souls. There has been higher developed souls that reach higher levels of spirituality. And when you're around somebody like this, their energy is completely different. And I had the privilege of being around that and experiencing it with Master Sharji. And then other people, like people who were saintly people in Sajmark. You go to their houses, you be around them, and they're just the aura that they emit, the light that they emit, and the spiritual energy. And, I worked also with sex offenders, and their deviant families would come in, like their fucked up families. They're, oftentimes just underdeveloped. And when I was in India, I was around these people who are so malnourished and so in terms of their food, they don't develop, brain capacity doesn't develop. And they're so they don't get proper education. They don't get access to higher level concepts. They don't have the ability for abstract thought. So I've been around, the dregs of the society, but also people who are just so poor that they just don't have it. Like they're just operating a much lower level of consciousness. So I understand this from my own experience. I can't, you have to get it from your own experience, but I've seen it. I've been a part of it. And there are higher developed souls. And when you see what humans are capable of on a spiritual level, and this is the idea that there can't be just one. There can't be just a handful of people. It's got to be everybody. It evolves, and it requires genetic mutation. It requires rising up to a higher level of consciousness, like just evolving. And we evolve spiritually in our relationship to God. That's our true evolution. And we have this DNA, this junk DNA that's in our system that like people think is meaningless, but that's potential. It's potential for these things. We have codes and things in there. It's just ready to be activated. That's why they had these indigo children and things. But there has to be like this tumultuous, apocalyptic event to create this, these changes. Okay, so let's get back to it here. But like, just is what I'm talking about in terms of, this is going to happen. Like, regardless of any politics or what you say or I say about it or what I care about, what you care about, what anybody cares about, this is going to happen. Like, it's, this is like, taking your medicine, like divine medicine. This is like, it has to happen. And whatever, Trump or whoever's a part of this thing, they're playing their role, maybe, not willingly or consciously, but they're doing it. And they're, and if it isn't Trump, it'll be somebody else. It would have been Biden or Kamala Harris or whatever. Like, this is, this is going to happen. So why bother with it? Let me just read this one comment from my other channel. And this was, I, made these various videos talking about how I've cultivated this, the thoughtlessness state that's available in the Sajmark system. And I've been working with that for a couple weeks now. And this person writes, Paul, so I'm hung up on why it is that the elite rulers are up. Paul, I'm hung up on is what the elite rulers are up to. How do we ensure our path back to the source doesn't line up with their path to world domination and control? Well, like, they're nothing. See, I keep on saying this. You guys, you're too obsessed with these fucking controllers, these elite. They don't have any real power. They only get their power they have. They get for a period of time, and it's taken away. Like they'll be gone. People die and movements die. The only power they have is the power that's, whatever they're doing that's part of a divine plan, and also what we contribute. Like they have to feed off the masses, right? But if you live your spiritual life and you do what you're supposed to do, none of this shit matters. The government doesn't matter. Your relationships in your life, the people that screw you over, none of this stuff matters. Like none of it matters. It just matters that you're on your spiritual path. Like you don't worry about these. Like, how do I know? I want God realization, but I don't want to help those fucking motherfuckers. Like if you get God realization, which is a rare, it's a hard thing to achieve. From your own, like everybody's own bullshit that we have in us, our own egotistical tendencies. It's hard to achieve, right? Liberation, your freedom of potential rebirths and freedom from reincarnation, where you can move up to a higher level of consciousness that don't have to be here. You can choose to be here, but that would be, to do God's work, but it's a different thing. You're not going to be trapped down here, right? Being liberated from your earthly entrapment. And that's an easy goal to achieve. And there's, I would say, it's probably in the thousands of people who have achieved that in the history of, even people you think achieved it didn't, like famous religious figures. And so, like that's a much easier goal to achieve than God realization, which is to merge back into the source. And so if you merge back into the source, you're not going to give a shit about this planet or anything else. Not in a egotistical way. All right, so I just ate breakfast. I had to take a break. I was doing different stuff. But, this is what I really want to say here about, like, this person. Let me read their question and their comment again. Paul, so I'm a little bit hung up on what is that elite rulers are up to. How do we ensure our path back to the source doesn't line up with their path to world domination / control? So whenever there's a choice between your short-term benefit your short-term egotistical benefit for your personal materialistic life, your life now, and the benefit of your soul, you should always choose your soul. And I'm not, this is not advice. I mean, it's the obvious answer, but we all, even spiritual people, highly developed, disciplined spiritual people, will make short-term decisions about their whatever's going on with them and an ego in this life that'll hurt their soul. Like I've talked about this over and over again. Tuesday Paul screwing over Wednesday Paul, right? Doing things today that I have to pay for tomorrow. Every time we go get drunk, you're doing that. Every time you go take something that is going to, hurt your physical body, you're going to have a hangover. Staying up late all night, and you're going to have to work the next day and only get 3 hours sleep. Things like that. You're fucking yourself over in the future, right? And those are just material examples. Like we're creating these things called samskaras, impressions, that we're going to have to work off in the future. Anything we do now, we're going to have to pay for later. Every time we go against God's will, we have to pay for that. We have to suffer the consequences of that later on. It's, that's inevitable. If there's a plan and there's God, then that has to be the case. You can't have it like both ways. It's not random. It's not like you can get away with something. Everything's recorded. Everything is, you have to pay for it. So your soul is eternal. And if you have a soul, and for me, I have enough experience of having a soul, spiritual experiences that for me, that's totally there. I mean, going back to when I saw my first dead body, which was my grandfather, was age 10, and I looked at his body, I'm like, he's not there anymore, right? Whatever was my grandfather wasn't there. I didn't, I couldn't, I think about it the way I think about it now. I didn't have the capacity, but I understood, right? I saw it. And so your soul's eternal. So whatever benefits your soul is the most important thing. But we get caught up in our short-term lives. So the elite, the controllers, all that bullshit, none of that matters, right? That's stuff to do with you and your ego and your sense of fair play. They have their own relationship with God. Every person, just because they have power doesn't mean they're above you, that they're somehow more evolved. They are, usually less evolved if you're a spiritual person. I mean, they're 100% less evolved. If you're on the spiritual path, then you've had a past life where you were one of these assholes. Like you had a past life where you were one of these people. I know I had one. Like I had a long one and maybe not such a good one. There's these Asuric kings in India, these, demonic kings or whatever. And so what happens when there's transmigration of the soul. Let's say you're an animal in some past life, like a dog or a cow, like something that's domesticated usually, something that's around people or whatever. You come in as a first timer, wherever you were before. And this is your first time as being a human being. You're not going to have the ability for abstract thought. You're not really, you're going to be doing animalistic type work. You're going to be probably short-lived life. You're just coming out of something and you're now gone to the next level. And you're not really going to know what's going on. But you're going to see people who are more evolved, people who have had multiple lives and are much higher level than you in terms of their spiritual evolution. But you're not going to be able to recognize a saint. You're not going to be able to see or feel a saint's level of energy. You're not going to be able to, go to higher levels of consciousness. You might have some, basic religious understanding of there is a God or something, very primitive. But what you're going to look at is the kings and the wealthy people and the people you're going to be like, oh my God, like I'm doing this shit work and they have it so much better than me. And you're going to want to be one of them. And so you come in your next life and you're maybe born as a poor person and you become wealthy or you become a king or something like whatever it is, right? Because that's what you're meditating on and you're conscious of. And then you realize, oh, this is miserable. I'm more miserable now. I mean, you're not going to remember your past life, but you're going to be like, I'm more miserable now. And your soul's going to grab this information and say, all right, this isn't why I'm here, right? Your soul already knows why you're here, but your subtle bodies and these things, the etheric aspect of your soul that manifests into your various capacities, your mind, your ego, your things that you have, these things, the manas, the chit, the consciousness, these things that are your subtle bodies. They're going to realize, okay, we had this experience, now we can become a spiritual person. And so, it might take multiple lives for all that to play out, right? But you have to have a life as a rich person, as a powerful person, to realize how miserable you are. Like, you're more miserable in those lives than you were when you were just a poor peasant. So, then you become a spiritual person. And so anybody who's a spiritual person has gone through all that shit and is now aware, like, they have to have a spiritual goal and shouldn't be bothered by something that should, like, if they were conscious of it, would be behind them, right? So the people controlling the system, and there's some people who are just stuck here, souls that are stuck here, and they can't, extricate themselves from their addiction of power and these things. They're miserable, they're suicidal, they're self-destructive, and yet they keep on reincarnating in, doing the same old bullshit. But eventually that power system gets taken down, and in the future there won't be any, whatever is going on in the world. It's not going to, the power structure is going to be completely broken up and demolished, and whatever's left over is going to evolve into something better. Like, the new power structure will be based in divinity, because the Kali Yuga ended and we're now working on something else. So that would be the answer to that question, right? Or that idea that what's important for your soul is important for your soul. Nothing else really matters. And certainly what everyone else is doing means nothing. Like, you would forego your own spiritual evolution so that you could screw over the controllers. like it's just like, it's, I mean, why even think that way, right? Why would that even be a thought? Like, it's, if you do have a soul, like, first you have to, I mean, if there's no soul, then everything's like just chaotic, and you go about life just getting whatever you want and doing whatever you want, and just going for pleasure and happiness or whatever it is. You don't really have a purpose. It's just random. So it's either chaos or there's an order, a divine order. If there's a divine order, then then you have to figure out what you're here for, like, what's your purpose. And once you figure that out, then you go about that without being concerned about what everyone else's purpose is and what they're doing. I mean, everyone has the same purpose on the soul level. It's just some people realize it and most people don't. But anyways, let's get back to it here. Let's go back a little bit here.
One of the Republican Party's biggest donors, if not the biggest donor. And so that's really the question here.
What do you say? I missed something here.
Republican senators. We saw it from people like Ken Griffin, the billionaire, who is one of the Republican Party's biggest donors, if not the biggest donor. And so that's really the question here, is this seems to be getting to a situation where it's the United States and China seeing who is going to blink first. One thing that has been made clear.
Well, it's going to be U.S. Like, there's just no, I mean, we already know what that is. Like, why are you even talking about it? Like, Trump doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Like, this is, anybody who thought Trump was a business genius, I gave more, like, I knew Trump was a dope from The Apprentice. Like, I knew he was a blowhard and I mean, I thought he was funny. He was a good character. Like, he was a good character in the show. He was my favorite president as a character in the show. In 2016, up to when he just, when it started to be real, which was the COVID stuff, right? When it started to go south, it was because of COVID. And, that was when, he was, him being a piece of shit wasn't funny anymore. And so him being a piece of shit president was making fun of the presidency. It was a mockery to the presidency, which is always a joke. See, the other presidents, they put on an act. They acted presidential, and it drove all these people nuts, the people from the Democrats and, lifelong politicians and all the media, that Trump wouldn't act presidential. He wouldn't play the role. But he was, acting like he was just being who he was. And that was refreshing and entertaining until it started to have real world consequences, which was the way he got worked on COVID, right? And so, this idea that he is some kind of a genius, I mean, it should never have been there, because he wasn't. He's a buffoon. He's always been a buffoon. He's been an idiot, but he was sharper when he was younger. Like, he was smarter. He's less smart now. His brain isn't, he doesn't function as well, but still he's always a buffoon. He's a grifter. He's not successful as he wants people to believe. His success is just smoke and mirrors. So for years, I knew this guy was a joke, right? And before he was president, ran for president, in terms of what he was pretending to be. But I didn't know it was this bad. Like, there's things that I've learned since then, obviously. And going into the election, when he started talking about tariffs, I thought he actually knew about tariffs. Like, I thought he, probably knew more. I mean, like, I'm stunned by how little he knows. Like, unless he's just acting, which I can't believe he is. Like, it's hard he would have to be a really great actor, which we know he isn't, from his appearances in Home Alone 3 and other places, that he was just not, he's not a good actor. So, he doesn't have to be, because he does what they want him to do. They just have to push him in the right direction. He's got handlers that just guide him in a way where he thinks he's doing it himself, right? But, he at some point forgot that he was a grifter, and he's just not curious. He didn't figure out what terrorists was going to do. He didn't talk with people who, and again, he always thinks he knows more, or whatever it is, like whatever his bullshit, reasoning is. He had no idea what terrorists were going to do. Like, it's so fucked up, but it's true. You can see it now. Like, he had no idea. I mean, everyone else knew, and like fucking, all these people who knew about such things, which is, economic people, and they were like thinking he was bullshitting because they thought he knew what they knew, and they thought the people around him and somebody would stop him from doing. Like, they didn't even think he would do this, because he says shit all the time that he never does. He's a blowhard. He pretends to say, he threatens things, he makes things up, he just, randomly says shit. Like, he doesn't mean things, right? And so, like, he has this stream of consciousness. I just talked about thing where he's talking about putting bleach, disinfectant in people's bodies. Like, he was like, saw that they were bleaching everything. They were just spraying this disinfectant on shit, and it had, bleach and shit in it. And they had this protocol that would kill COVID, like on all the surfaces. So that's why I remember everything smelled like bleach during COVID, because everyone was bleaching the shit out of everything. Like, every day they're washing it. You go into the store, everything's fucking bleached. And he thought, well, what if we can bring bleach into our bodies? Remember, like just other things he said. Like, he just doesn't fucking get it, right? And so, he's always been that way, right? He's always been somebody who's like, he doesn't think about things that are embarrassing before he says them. And he doesn't research things before talking. Like, oh, they were eating the dogs. He had no evidence to support that they were eating the dogs. But it was convenient for him, right? So, he's the worst. All of us who disseminate information now, we don't have editors. All of us on social media doing what I do, that talk about things, we don't have editors, and we don't have, there's just no oversight. And it was just like, people being at a bar talking shit and bullshitting people about things without really doing thorough research. We don't have fact checkers, we don't have, vetters. So we have to be more accountable and more responsible. I talk about all the time with stuff I went through to realize, I had to be more responsible. Just because, you have to be responsible to your audience, right? Just for your own sake and for their sake. You just have to, you have to think to be more accountable in terms of your own, the way that you go about things. That's why I turned this into a comedy channel, and, I'm just bullshitting here. I'm not like, even though I have a deeper understanding of things, I make clear where my information comes from, the spiritual process, my opinions. And so, is it divinity or is it something else, right? People can, all argue those things. And so it should all be taken with a grain of salt, in that you have to come up with your own answers, right? I've come up with, to make my decisions. Like, we all have to make decisions based on what we're seeing going on in the world, big decisions, big time decisions. And we have to prepare for what's coming, because something is coming, right? You can see it, you can feel it, like, big changes are afoot. And so each person has to figure out what that is for them, connect with their soul, and, divinity's there for each person. And so, anyways, this is something we all have to do. But Trump just goes out there and says shit, doesn't even realize that its effects on the market and all these things. But it's clear now he has no idea what he's doing. And he's surrounding himself with yes people, and nobody's telling him the truth. And so it's a fucking disaster. And it's clear that China knows this and everyone else does, and that they just have to wait it out and Trump will hang himself. So China isn't going to blink first. It's silly.
The White House says they would at least like them to blink at the same time. But obviously, Jake, that's still an open question at this point.
China ain't fucking blinking. Trump's got to cave. Like, he's already caving. He's in the process of caving. It's just how much groveling he has to do.
Aware, Caitlin, of any trade deals that the White House has unquestionably made progress on?
The only thing that we heard today that stood out was the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying inside the Oval Office that he believes South Korea is actually moving a lot faster than he expected. As he described it, he said South Korean officials brought their A game to the negotiations, and he expects them to have a memorandum of understanding. Now, of course, Jake, getting to that point and having a top line is nowhere near the same thing as having an actual trade deal, which is
Okay, the whole thing's silly. I mean, I got to go to other things here. I mean, this is a good, the CNN has interesting shit now because they can do real news again because of Trump. They've become real news because of Trump being that guy. Like, Trump is being the guy they want him to be. So they can honestly cover him. They don't have to embellish. They don't have to make shit up. They have to, do all their shit that they were doing before with Trump. They can just say what Trump's doing, and, that's good enough, right? They don't have to put any bells and whistles on it. But the reality of the thing is, that this guy, all these countries, all they have to do is wait it out. They all know now he's fucked. Like, Trump has fucked America, he's fucked himself. And they know that he's going to have to cave across the board. Like, he's going to be denutted. Like, whatever bravado he had going into this thing, it's coming. It's so obvious, right? Unpopular, Trump whines about Fox News poll showing his approval rating cratering. Again, they get to fucking gloat and gloat. These guys all get to come out and...
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Donald Trump is unpopular. He's trying to force through an unpopular agenda and kind of hoping no one notices. But sometimes, once in a while, he gets caught and he has to retreat. Well, today's one of those days. Last night on this very program, we brought you this story. A story about the Trump administration announcing they were going to gut the Women's Health Initiative, a groundbreaking 30-year study into preventative health care for postmenopausal women. It's funded by the NIH, National Institutes of Health. It costs only about, get this, $10 million a year in the trillions of dollars in the federal budget. Now, the Women's Health Initiative has done a bunch of really important research.
Yeah, we don't really have, we have $5 trillion, but a trillion of that has to go to interest, right? In terms of the national debt. And so we're spending 8, we have 5. And so there's $3 trillion going to the national debt every year.
On subjects like breast cancer and heart disease and osteoporosis. By the government's own estimate, it has saved countless lives and billions of dollars in medical costs. But Trump and Elon Musk tried to end it. And last night, we put a spotlight on that and we asked, who exactly voted for this? Well, it turns out no one did. After spotlighting that story, lo and behold, get this. Administration reversed course, announcing today they're going to keep funding the study. Federal officials saying, don't worry.
You're such a big man. Like when you say things, you never know, like how many other people covered it. He's making it sound like they maneuvered Trump in some way, which, who knows what actually happened.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Now, if only the same could be said for many of the other countless destructive budget cuts, like just for instance, eliminating inexplicably funding for National History Day, a competition where middle and high school kids share their love of history. But fundamentally, what they're banking on is that they're doing so much in so many different parts of the government that are so destructive, no one could just pay attention to all this stuff, right? It's going to go past most voters. Because what they are actually doing is really unpopular. Now, the key here is that Donald Trump wants you to believe desperately that he is popular. It's all part of the con. Just because he managed to win a plurality of voters, which he did, with very poor approval ratings and 4 criminal cases tailing him, including a conviction in state court. And he did manage to win the popular vote, unlike in 2016. It's the first time in 3 tries. But all of a sudden, after that victory, the conventional wisdom quickly congealed that America was Trump country, that he was a political colossus. Remember, the guy won by about 1.5 points, hardly a landslide. He was inaugurated with basically the highest approval rating that he has ever had, which also happened to be the second lowest approval rating ever for a new president, topped only by himself the first time around. He has never been very popular. And his approval rating has only gone down since. Nate Silver tracks the average over on his Substack. Full disclosure, some of the graphs on that site are really difficult to show on TV. They require lots of explanation. This ain't one of them. See that there? You can see what that's doing. The line just keeps going down. Even Fox News has no choice but to face this reality.
If you look at our new Fox News poll at 100 days job approval compared to other presidents, there you see the president at 44%, and you see his first term at 45%.
So that's these fucks, right? I mean, Obama and Bush were higher, and they ended up suffering, bad approval ratings. And so this is bad, right? This is fucking bad. And I don't know how he's got 44%. Like, there's 44% of brain dead motherfuckers out there who, it's just desperate people. I mean, they're so desperate that there's nothing this guy will do what's going to shake they just don't want the curtain to be drawn back, right? They'll do anything to bury their head in the sand because the truth is like fucking painful for them. It's painful for everybody, really. I mean, the liberals and the mainstream media are gloating and laughing, but if Trump is as bad as they say he is, which he is now, I mean, he's kind of worse. I think he's shocked everybody a little bit. And he's this stupid, and he's doing this much destruction. You're laughing, which I am too, so I'm not going to fucking... I mean, I find it funny because I find the apocalypse funny. But it isn't funny like what's going to happen, the suffering that's going to, down the road, what this is going to entail. And if it entails World War III, which I'm almost sure it is, an economic collapse, which I'm almost sure it is, the amount of suffering, and again, part of a divine plan, which I'm really sure it is, still it's suffering, right? Again, it's like you can take everything with a grain of salt and make everything, be grateful for anything, but, Jesus.
At this mark, the 100-day mark. We have other new polls that are revealing some concerns about the economy.
Boy, that's a tough graphic if you're Donald Trump sitting in the White House watching Fox News all day. That's the kind of clip that really gets Donald Trump yelling at the TV. In fact, he's now calling for Fox's pollster to be fired. Also says the Wall Street Journal sucks.
Wait, let's well read that. Why did you blow over that? Rupert Murdoch has told me for years that he is getting rid of his Fox News Trump-hating fake pollster, but he never has done so. This pollster has got me and MAGA wrong for years. Also, while he's at it, he should start making changes at the China-loving Wall Street Journal. It sucks. This is Trump. Well, he's not drunk tweeting in the middle of the night, but this is him realizing, if it is MAGA people make up at tops like 35-40%. The fact he has 45% approval means that he's got just MAGA people. And, maybe some wannabe MAGAs that aren't as MAGA. But the MAGA people make up very few people, less than half the country. Like, he didn't win because of MAGA people. He won because some of the people in the middle, some of the people undecided, some of these non-committal people, and say maybe in some of the Democrats were freaked out by Joe Biden and the mishandling of the economy and food prices and fucking, all those things, inflation. And so, that's the only reason he won, because there was 52% of people before the election, a year before the election, said they were never Trumper voters. They'd never vote for Trump. So either, there was lower turnout, which there might have been, or people are just, they held their nose and they voted for him. But 45%, I think, is high. I mean, it should be way lower than this, right? But he's claiming that he has, what does he think his approval rating is, 60%? He thinks the American people think he's doing a good job. Independent voters have left him in droves. He just has the MAGA dopes. And the MAGA dopes can't be counted because, like he said himself, he could shoot somebody in the face in Fifth Avenue and they wouldn't they wouldn't change. He was talking about the fake assassination attempt, how nobody ran, that they were willing to put their own lives at risk. He's the only person that mattered. Like, he's got cultish following. And so, that's not, and they shouldn't even count in terms of these polls. Like he has a 0% percentage of non-Trumper. Like everyone who's not a Trumper thinks he's doing a shit job, or people who are just unaware. They don't watch anything. They don't, they don't believe in anything. And all the people says everything that's being put out there is fake news. Well, it was until he started to do real shit, and then they can really report on him. Like this is what's happened.
Also says the Wall Street Journal sucks. We're not even 100 days in, and Trump is already at the polls are fake stage. But again, they show it.
That's funny.
They show, even at the granular level, right? When you dive into it and you look through the numbers, you break his approval rating down by issue, things don't get any better for him. I mean, he is underwater on basically everything. Let's start with the economy. That's
Okay, let's do the economy and then we'll move on. It's just
supposed to be Trump's bread and butter. Traditionally, it's been his biggest strength. That same Fox News poll has 56% of voters approving of Trump's handling of the economy. 38 approve. Underwater by 18 points.
the guy fucked it up. He said they both were approval. But this is probably the real Trumper number. This is real Trumpers. So these are, again, Fox News polls that I would assume was biased towards Trump. And Trump is saying it's biased against him, but he's fucking, he's a delusional or whatever he is. But I think there's probably around 35% died-hard MAGA people that fall into this spectrum, which is quite a number of people. That's a good number of people. It's, critical mass where, once you reach that number in anything, like this is part of the spiritual, the teaching the third master seismic system. If you get 33% of the people, like you get 30, if you get 33% of the population to do something, then it's sustainable, whatever reason, right? Of course, in terms of population numbers, it's 2.1. Like in terms of, having a population in terms of births versus deaths, you need 2.1% growth to keep your population stable. Once you fall below that number, it just keeps on snowballing until that group of people is extinct. So these people in Europe, right, you have all these Muslim people and people of color coming in from other countries, and they're having lots of babies, but the Europeans themselves don't want to have kids, and so they're done. These European countries will be overrun. They'll no longer be white countries pretty soon. The white people aren't having kids, white Europeans, and so they're going to be overtaken by these other demographics. And so there's that. But in terms of, this stuff about growing a movement, it's 33%. And Trump has that for a while. That's all he has. In terms of they're a strong group because they're delusional and, they're pro-Trumpers. They're Trump or die people. And and everything is fake news. If anything you try to tell them is fake news, or you're a Democrat, or your TDS is showing, you've all seen it. And so they're whatever they are. So they don't count because they will never bail on this guy. And until it's too late. They kind of started to bail on him after he fell apart in the last election, but it's going to take a lot. It's going to take real fucking, getting slapped in the face by, just reality in terms of, your material life for people to bail on him. So those people are whatever, but 56% of them now, that's a fucking majority of people thinks he's doing a bad job in the economy. And that means tariffs. That means he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, right? And he's going to have to reverse himself, and he's going to claim victory, but no one's going to believe him. And then he's just going to be done. He's just exposed himself. He's been exposed as a grifter. It's undeniable that this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's just a bullshitter, which is kind of funny because he's the president and twice. He fucking conned his way in there fucking twice. So kudos for him. His ability to grift is epic. But other than that, he's a fucking piece of shit, right? He said that's being a grifter is also being a piece of shit, but he's good at it. So this is Forbes magazine. They're mostly pro-Trump. It's a Republican-based magazine. And Shein and Temu are bargain-based clothing retailers. So they sell fashion. And they're going to raise prices tomorrow amid Trump tariffs. So these are Chinese-based companies, and they're already raising their prices. So this, we know this about like all these things, right? What to know? They don't have any words. It's just a thing. Just tell us what to know. Shein and Temu, major online retailers known for wildly low prices, and then they got screwed there, said they would raise some prices for some products Friday. So that's today. This was from yesterday. After President Trump imposed hefty tariffs on China, though it's unclear which products will get more, whatever. So you get it, right? Like this is happening. And all these things are going to start affecting people. And when people, one thing people can realize and are very sensitive and aware of after what Biden did, what happened under Biden, is prices going up or down. Like people are like checking their receipts now and are looking at prices when they, you just buy your regular shit, right? And then you're, if it's, within a budget that you don't think about it. But then once prices start going up and you look at what, you go to the cash register and you're checking out at the grocery store and you're like, oh my God, that's way more than it usually is for the same shit I bought like fucking 2 months ago. And then you start going, what's happening? And then you hear about the inflation, right? And then you start looking into it because you're like, maybe someone doesn't give a shit about news. But all of a sudden now you're like, oh, I got to put some of this shit back. I can't afford this, right? And so, and it's a sticker shock. Even if you have money, it's like a sticker shock. So people start going, oh, well, what's happening? And then, this is under Biden. And so they're hyper aware of this, and they're waiting for Trump to drop prices. And when prices go up and they're hearing us about the tariffs, and they're like, well, maybe they'll buy into his bullshit for a little bit, but they'll start having a fear response. And then at some point you're like, this guy fucked me. Right? Like that's just how it goes. Okay, so I want to add one thing here. I was editing and this idea popped into my mind. And so let's go with it. So, you look at this as China's the drug dealer and America's the addict, the drug user. And so, all this cheap shit that we get from China, lots of people buy cheap shit every day. Dollar store stuff, Walmart stuff, all this stuff from China. And aside from that, there's all these other aspects of it. American-made goods companies that are manufacturing shit in China, all that stuff, right? And so to be able to consume, because this is the heart of our drug addiction, our addiction to consumerism. We're an addict of consumerism. China isn't a consumer-based, capitalist-based economy. They're morphing to be a part of that. But they're on the supply end, right, of the addiction. And we're addicted to Chinese shit, right? 40% of our imports are from China, and we had lots of imports from other countries, Canada and Mexico. And for food, we have a lot of different imports. And so for 40% is this cheap Chinese stuff that's, Americans are addicted to. And so, the drug dealer, it's less income and, less, work for their employees. They have issues on their end, right? If they lose their customers, people don't want to lose their customers. But China has global customers, and America being one of the best, or being the best and biggest one. Yet, the drug dealer, it's easy for them to deal with the loss of income than it is for the addict to deal with the loss of addiction. And so if you're addicted to something, then you're a lot more desperate. Your desperation hits a lot quicker. And if your drug dealer decides to hike prices up by 100%, what are you going to do, right? You're addicted. So you got to come up with more money. And so, that's just how it is. So, like the idea that Trump would somehow be able to, America would somehow be able to outlast China and make China blink first is silly. Because as much as China's tied to American economy and all these, all the other ways that this is a codependent relationship, we're the addicts. Like America's the addicts, right? And so Trump, anybody could have seen this coming. And, with all the other things that I'm saying about it. So Trump's fucked. Like there's no way he can win this thing. Anyways, back to the original program. Okay, so this is just other smug MSNBC people. This is like doing a victory dance, right? And they're going to do this. I don't want to show too much of this because, she's a witch and might explode like her dark magic might come pouring out.
He bites Donald Trump in the you-know-where. If the price of eggs
where?
Today, reality bites Donald Trump in the you-know-where.
Where? I actually don't know where. You mean the ass or what? Like somewhere else?
Eggs propelled Donald Trump to victory in November, then his man-made economic instability, which has rattled markets and ushered in unease for American consumers, may very well be his political undoing. A wave of new polls show that both Donald Trump's approval ratings and voters' opinions of his handling of the economy are today in free fall. The New York Times average of polls shows this, quote, Trump's approval rating has sunk to about 45%. That's down from 52% 1 week after he took office. Voters' views of his...
It's only 7%. Like, fucking take that in. I mean, breathe that in for a second. It's only 7%. You know, I've been covering this guy, and, you know, I knew it was going to be bad. I knew there was going to be bullshit. I had no idea it was going to be this bad, this quick. And, you know, there were some good things he did immediately. The gender stuff, that was great. Some of the stuff RFK Jr. is saying he's going to do, and some of the, you know, the fluoride out of the water, some of these other things. You know, things that I never thought would happen. Like, there's things that, like, seem to be positive things. So I wasn't, you know, I knew the apocalypse was coming, and to blame it all on Trump would be silly, even now. I mean, it's just like I read that, you know, whispers, that's what I believe. You know, that this is part of a divine plan, and that's the divine plan, right? That, you know, we have to suffer from we're going the wrong fucking direction. We're not connected to God. Our families are decimated. We're really fucking unnatural, and, you know, I mean, we're going in the wrong direction. You know, it's idiocracy. So there has to be a divine correction, and that's coming. And, you know, something where we could go to do something better, like be better than we are now. But right now we're less than we used to be. Like, people are devolving. And so, yeah, like, you know, I knew it was going south, but Trump's, like, his idiocracy is showing, his own personal idiocracy. And it's on full display. And only 7% of the people can see it, right? Like, the people that hated him before, sure, they were already prejudiced against him. But out of the people that thought Trump was doing a good job on day one, only 7% see, like, that's fucking everything you need to know about the American people and why democracy is stupid, because people are fucking stupid, and, you know, they can't govern themselves, right? Like, anything you want to say about controllers and, you know, these things, people can't govern themselves. And I don't want to govern them. I don't want those positions. I don't want to govern anybody. I don't want to be in charge of anything. I don't want the responsibility. I don't want an administrative position at all. I don't want fucking employees. This is why I've, you know, the Gratefullness meditation stuff that I do is just, you know, giving sittings and explaining things in a website, you know, on a YouTube channel. But, you know, other than that, like, and that's just to keep something going that I think is the solution, doing my part, whatever little part there is, and talking about it here. But I don't want fucking followers. I don't want an organization. I don't want to be head of an organization. You know, these things. Like, I don't want any part of that, because I know people suck, and, like, fuck, it's a nightmare. It's headaches and stress and fucking, you know, I've observed and learned my lesson from other people trying to do good things. Certainly the masters of Seismark system. And the level of stress and the level of shit that they have to fucking deal with, because people just suck so fucking bad at, you know, people just go to the lower. You have a higher nature and a lower nature, and people just go to the lower. We all do it. We should just, you know, be aware of that. Like, we embrace the lower. We have the higher, which is love and God and compassion and empathy and, you know, our ability to do God's work and connect with God and follow God's orders. And 0.0001% of people even flirt with that shit. Like, the majority of people, they just do what they want to do, and it's stuff that goes against God's will, right? And it's, you know, self-sabotaging bullshit things, right? And so that's why, you know, it's not a shocker it's only 7%, because people are always manufacturing a fake reality for themselves, and they'll just find a way to rearrange what they're seeing. But it's right in your fucking face right now. Donald Trump being a complete boob is right in your fucking face.
Handling of the economy are even lower than his overall approval rating. A Fox News poll out last night puts his approval on the economy at 38%.
Yeah, we already saw this stuff. So anyways, you got these people here.
Threat after slapping so-called.
You know, this is the guy that he tried to fire, the head of the Fed. You know, where they're sticking up for the Fed, right? Like the Fed is better than Trump at this point in terms of stability.
Confronted with China pouring
Okay,
cold.
so it's the same basic bullshit. And she's just gloating. Got her. Fish girl. We got Fish girl. And so there's that. Are things falling apart for Trump? Of course they are. Why even ask that stupid question? Watch a real Rachel Maddow a little bit. She's the worst.
Very provocative headline there. Are things falling apart for Trump?
They're not, because you already knew they were and fucking ahead of time. Like everyone knew that his shit wasn't going to work like the way he said. No one knew it was going to be this bad. But you knew. We all know. Like fucking we all should know.
I don't know. But let's look. Let's look at the evidence from the Post tonight. Multiple polls this week showed Trump hitting new lows. His approval rating has been double digits underwater in surveys from the Pew Research Center.
They fucking Pew. All right. That's enough for Rachel. But you can see that they're all going with this, right? And I haven't, Morning Joe and the Hammer guy, I don't have anything for them because I haven't, I don't search these people. This is stuff that YouTube pops into my feed. And really, they don't pop a lot of news stories into my feed, which is weird because sometimes I have to search for certain things. Like I'll search for Trump and they'll recommend these things or whatever. Whatever it might be. But he's fucked, right? We all should know. Like he was never, he's a grifter. So yeah, we knew this was going to come. We just didn't know it goes this fast and this hard. And even with that, it's only 7%, right? The only thing for Trump that's saving him too is we're in the time of the quickening where, O.J. Simpson was a story that lasted for over a year. I watched the NBA Finals, and they broke in for the O.J. They broke into a fucking final championship basketball game. I believe it was between the Houston Rockets and the New York Knicks. And not sure, but I'm pretty sure it was that. And they were showing O.J. Simpson, driving down the highway in a car chase. All the major networks covered this. This is, what TV was TV, and there was no internet and all that stuff. And that story lasted. I was in India and I heard about it. I had no access to the news. Of course, we didn't have cell phones. This is 1995, whatever the OJ thing was. And I heard about it, and I didn't read any newspaper. There was somehow the trial was going on, right? So that OJ thing lasted over a year, was covered pretty regularly. And Watergate, when I was a kid, got covered. Some of these scandals are nothing compared to what we have going on now. And all the shit that Trump's doing, he's throwing all this shit up against the wall, like that guy said, that Chris Hayes guys were saying, that, you can't notice all of it. So some of it's going to pass through, right? It's just firing a bunch of things at a defense, the Iron Dome, and something gets through, right? So, some things aren't going to go unnoticed. And, there's not just Trump scandals, but scandals in general. There's Shannon Sharp thing, is hitting. There's all these things out there. And so, you can't keep up with everything. And there's so much information out there on top of it all. So, this guy would have been fired, the first time under any other president. And that would have been a major story. But it only lasted 3 days. That guy Luigi, that thing, remember that lasted a week. The Luigi thing. It's all just,
Now to new revelations involving Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The Washington Post first reported, and the NewsHour can confirm, that Hegseth had the unclassified messaging app Signal installed on a computer in his Pentagon office. That's after reporting that Hegseth shared highly sensitive and detailed attack plans in a Signal group chat last month that included his wife, brother, and lawyer, in addition to top national security officials, hours before a mission was launched against Houthi forces in Yemen. All of this is unfolding as chaos is mounting at the Pentagon with the firings of top Hegseth aides. We're joined now by Dan Lamothe, who covers the U.S. military and Pentagon for the Washington Post. Dan, it's great to have you here. So why the special computer setup? Why is Secretary Hegseth finding new ways to use this commercial messaging app, Signal, on his Pentagon computer?
This speaks to the need and desire.
This is Hegseth reportedly as an unsecure internet line in Pentagon office for Signal, which is different than this was already reported, what they're saying now.
That he and other Pentagon officials saw for this platform in a environment where you simply are not allowed to have your cell phone. All of these are known as SCIFs. It's basically a compartmented part of the building where you're not allowed to have personal electronics. So to get around that, they installed a special line, a separate computer, and basically had a way for him to message from the computer while still in a classified environment with classified.
Holy shit. So that's much worse. Like they put in a fucking line that in an area where you weren't supposed to have access to. Like, this is fucking bad. I mean, this will drive these, like, doesn't matter to me. I don't give a shit. But for those people that are into this kind of secrecy, I think, everything should be public. I don't believe in secrecy. I think it all should just be out there, and it's going to be out there anyway. The truth, you can't hide the truth. Like, it's just silly. You can't hide it, right? It's there for everyone to see. And it will definitely be there in the future. I mean, it's a time of truth. Shit's coming up. That's part of the reason why there's so many things, because, like, everything's coming out one way or another. And, whether it comes out officially or not, the truth is there. It's just so much bullshit. You have to cite, you have to pick through all the bullshit to get to the truth, so it's hard to find. But it's right in front of our face. It's always there, and it's always there internally. And so,
systems right nearby.
So the fact that this app is not part of the secure information sharing architecture within the Pentagon, I mean, is that an operational breach?
Wouldn't be an operational breach necessarily to just have it, but
okay, so we get the idea. And so, he tried to get around. He did get around. It's an area where this isn't about what he can do. This is fucking their shit, right? This is their policies that we have to have places where you don't have access to the internet, where there isn't an open line that people can spy on you through, and any number of things. That information can be leaked. Like, this is, he's installed he gamed the system. You can't bring your devices in for a fucking reason, right? And so they have these SCIFs and things that are there. They're secured, but he put it on his computer so he could get out. He could take this information, get it out there to fucking people who weren't didn't have the class of the security clearance. I mean, this is so fucking bad. Like, everything that all these Trumpers who went after Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden for what Trump also did, mishandling classified information, this is way worse. Like, he just fucking doesn't get it, right? And I mean, and he's not going to be fired because Trump won't. Like, so, But anyways, one more thing here. So I wanted to cover this for a while. This is how Democratic Party needs different characters. And this is, let's, make sure we don't forget how bad the Democrats suck. Because this is happening.
All right, joining us now is Galen Drew, political analyst and host of the
What, Galen? Your name is Galen Drew?
GD Politics podcast. All right, Hogg's plan kind of has the party split, with some people backing him and saying, yes, this is what we need, new energy, new blood, and others saying, let's not.
It's not new energy and new blood. They're just younger versions of the same suck, right? Like, let's make that perfectly clear. They're just younger. They're not new blood. They're younger blood. They're younger people that grew up in different generations, sure. But they have the same bullshit Democratic views that, and really the Democratic Party for the past, 10 years now, have been anti-Trump, right? So since 2015, really 2016, so 9 years now, everything's been about, well, we're not Trump, right? When Trump became the Republican nominee, the Democrats kicked in this, okay, we're not Trump. That's all we have to be. Even though we're Hillary, at least we're not Trump. And so that's all they've had for 9 years, and it's working right now, and it will work as Trump fucks the country up even more as he goes through his debacle here. But that still isn't, okay, you're not Trump, but who are you, right? And who they are sucks.
Not eat ourselves from the inside while we're trying to counter something really big. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the data, Democratic voters themselves seem to be supportive
Okay, so this guy should definitely not be named Galen.
of the general idea.
Galen
So the progressive data outfit, Data for Progress, asked likely Democratic voters, would you like to see older lawmakers in the party pass the torch? And 70% of Democratic likely voters said yes. So a clear majority there. But I think it's important to take a broader view here, which is historically, even when there is a lot of anti-incumbent sentiment and a high level of disapproval for one's own party, incumbents usually win. I mean, when we look at years like...
Okay, Jesus, Galen. Enough of that. So, this is the bombshell thing here.
I mean, someone who kind of walks the line between now, I guess, an incumbent, but still has the brand of a bit of an upstart is someone you were just talking about. You've got this new video posted on the Silver Bulletin Substack where you say Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez could be the likely Democrat for 2028. For years since she came to Washington, she's been a firebrand for the right. She's always written off by a lot of folks as too progressive, but we've really seen her kind of rise and get her stride, and she's doing these rallies with Bernie Sanders and drawing crowds. Are you convinced that she could get the support of the full party if she did run?
Yeah, it's a good question, and Nate Silver and I did a Democratic primary.
Okay, so that's why he talks a lot like Nate Silver.
Draft that we acknowledged was way too early.
It's too early.
It is definitely too early. But, to be clear, the candidates themselves are already positioning themselves to make their run. So I think it's fair game for us to look at the moves that they're making and sort of analyze them accordingly. And here's what I can say about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She is well liked by Democrats. In a recent Yale poll, we see that about 60%, on net, her approval rating is plus 60%. That has her about tied with Harris and Buttigieg. So even though she has in the past been seen as a polarizing...
That Harris still has 60% positive rating? She never had that. I mean, why does she even have it? If she didn't have that before, how has Harris got that? Are they talking about running Harris again? So this is what the Democrats have, right? Buttigieg, AOC, and Harris. That's their front runners. Now, let's go back to this thing with we'll come back to what he was saying here. This picture here with Bernie Sanders somewhere. There was a picture here with her. There they are. Right here. So she is Bernie Sanders policy-wise. Bernie Sanders is a socialist and liberal, and she's a dope. She's dumb as fuck and unlikable. And so if she only has 60% of Democrats, they need 100% Democrats to win, And so, if she could win the nomination like Bernie Sanders, she's going to have more support. Bernie Sanders had more, they can crank out crowds like Trump cranks out crowds, right? Because Trump is far right. Trump appeals to far right. He gives them red meat, and they give their liberal, their unhinged liberals, they give them blue meat, right? The socialist liberals. And so Bernie Sanders can draw a crowd, and he can get a lot of enthusiasm. But he's capped off about 30% of Democrats, in terms of the vote he gets in these primaries and things. And, the rest of the people are not going to elect a socialist president. And so the Democrats have avoided Bernie Sanders twice. They rigged it against him because he could have won. He should have won against Hillary. They rigged it against him there, and he was going to win against Biden. And they openly rigged it right in front of everybody's face where Democratic senators came in and said Bernie Sanders is not going to win on CNN and MSNBC and said, well, you can't let him win. And they just rigged it. Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar who were taking votes away from Biden withdrew and supported Biden. And Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren, as Trump calls her, fucking stayed in, and she was running on Bernie Sanders' ticket, like his platform. She took his platform from him and was running on, and so she took 10% of his vote, and Biden was able to win those rest of those primaries, and that guy endorsed him, Clyburn in South Carolina, but Joe Biden was getting his ass kicked in. They didn't want him. Iowa and New Hampshire voted against him, and if he had lost South Carolina, which he could have, he would have been done. He would have had no chance of winning, even though he was a front runner going into this whole thing. But they rigged it against Bernie Sanders. And so to say that AOC is legitimate candidate, like this is what they got, like, you know, Trump sucks, yeah. And Trump's going to destroy America and the world, yeah, sure, it's happening. But this is your all fucking alternative? AOC? Harris and Buttigieg? Like, you got fucking dick, right? You got nothing. You got fucking nothing, right? Like, you know, as bad as Trump is, you can't come up with a reasonable person here.
So even though she has in the past been seen as a polarizing figure, across the party, she is well-liked. She also has part of her base is going to be that more fervent, progressive part of the party that backed Bernie Sanders through thick and thin.
Exactly what I just said, Gaylord. Galen.
And if a lot of
Galen.
Democrats run in 2028, you know, one of those clown car primaries where everyone just keeps announcing, I'm also running, I'm also running. Having that really...
That's a funny thing, clown car primaries, because that's what they had. They had 20 fucking candidates. They had to split the debates up into 2 different nights. And the guys that were running, that guy with the funny name from Colorado, I mean, they had all these people polling under 1% up there fucking the thing up, right? And that's what they're going to have. Like, it's going to be a shit show.
Enthusiastic base of support as you move through the different primary states can be really helpful. I will also say, importantly, that she's pivoted her messaging quite a bit. You listen to these fighting oligarchy rallies. Her message is mostly about the economy. She's not talking about abolishing ICE and the kinds of things that were very polarizing.
Yeah, but she said it in the past, so they're going to bring all that shit up. And so if you got the ticket to Wonka, the Wonka land, whatever, Wonka's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, fucking Wonka shit, right? You got one of the golden tickets with Trump being a complete buffoon, and you're going to throw AOC out there? Like, this is how fucked the Democratic Party is. Like, just to say, all right, Trump is bad, sure. Everything I said about Trump, everything that we see about Trump, it's even worse than, I mean, it's coming out worse than we already do. But the Democrats, this is what you got? Like, fucking Jesus Christ. You got AOC? And so, like, the whole thing, this is why we're fucked. You know, this is a good, you know, this is validating everything that I say. There's no fucking solution here. Like, they don't have any reasonable person like that has some kind of good quality, like a great leader, I mean, whatever it is, just a mediocre person. It's just they got all these freaks, right? Like, it's a battle of the freaks. I mean, this is what America's been. You know, American politics is degenerated into. There isn't just one normal kind of, you know, person with good leadership qualities. I mean, they don't even have to be great. Like, we need a great person, but like even just somebody who's fucking normal and just reasonable. But they don't exist in politics, right? These types of people. And so, AOC. Okay, so Barron Trump, answer straight. Do you think Pope Francis is evil? This is Trump's son, right? And so this demonic-looking, you know, Antichrist-looking kid, Janet Miller, checkmark. Maybe your mother should have taught you better. You are far from a Christian, just like your father and your sister. How ignorant you are. If you were a Christian, you would never pose such a question. Romans 14:10-12. You then, why do you judge your brother or sister? Or why do you treat them with contempt? For we will all stand before God's judgment seat. It is written, as surely as I live, says the Lord, every knee will bow before me, every tongue will acknowledge God. So then each of us will do account of ourselves to God. So you and your family will also have to stand before God. Yeah, Janet, but you just said you are not a Christian. Maybe your mother should have taught you better, so you're judging his mom. You're also judging him. And then you post this fucking quote. You're everything that I talk about Christians. You say you have this thing. You then, why do you judge your brother or sister? You're doing both. You're judging a brother and a sister here, right? Right here. And Christians are some of the most judgmental fucking people of every religion. They're all judgmental. So what the fuck you talking about, bro? I mean, you've just read, you're quoting out of your book that you believe in, but you don't believe in your book, and you're using your book as a weapon against this kid as you judge him, and you're doing it because he judged the Pope, but he didn't. He asked a question. He didn't say he thought he was evil. Do you think Pope Francis was evil? And we don't know if Barron considers himself a Christian. So fuck you, Janet. 100%. And then they have this thing. Boom, they got the devil's horns. Like looking up, boom. So he's got the Baphomet there, the Jim LaVey, the LaVey guy, Anton. Dive into a grip tale of redemption and truth-seeking Trinity by Louis Berry, where assassin's faith clashes with his mission. The stakes are life, legacy, and love. Can one man rewrite his own destiny? Seeking the Trinity, creating fabric of humanity. Who's next? Their club sure seems to be losing a lot of members lately. So we obviously have some kind of semi-right-wing truthers that follow him. And so they have it, right? They got all these demons, and they got these two guys left. He was not the Pope. Not necessarily evil, but clearly a hardcore progressive whose edicts were clearly in line with the leftist political ideology unrelated to Christianity or biblical teachings. Yes, not in the beginning, but something went wrong somewhere. Maybe he was in the beginning too. I just didn't see it as clearly as I did in the latter part of his reign. I'm a Catholic, but I always felt like I do not need a pope. This is a man-made position. I just need Christ. Way to go, Lion Roars. Yes. There's your proof right there. I've been studying this back in the 90s. The papacy actually pushed Constantine into becoming a Christian because they couldn't stop the Christian movement at the time that impaled the Christians and led them on fire to illuminate the arenas. That impaled the Christians and lit them on fire let them on fire to. He has let instead of lit. That's what's fucking this up. You get it. They lit him on fire to illuminate the arenas. The papacy convinced him not to become a Christian and took all of the literature and made changes. Convinced him to become a Christian and took him all the literature and made changes to the commandments. For one was the Sabbath day and others were manipulated. But Sunday recognized as a pagan day of worship that was incorporated to the Christian belief system along with other manipulations. I read if anyone was taught, like again, this person says I read it, meaning that whatever you read is true. I know that this has happened. I talk about this myself, but this person says, I read if anybody was caught. Well, what did you read and who did you read? This is the problem with people who aren't truthers and most truthers. Just because you read it doesn't mean the person's telling you the truth. Well, it was in a book somewhere and I read it. Oh, yeah, was it true? Did you fact check it or did you have any way of fact checking it? I read if any was caught with biblical literature, they were drug out in the street and executed immediately. Seems to me it was another means of controlling the masses and inflicting false doctrine. And then there's the idols and everything else that goes with it. Of course, he wasn't good. He represented 2,000 years of false doctrine, which Jesus warned us about all through the New Testament. I guess we get the idea here. That one sucks. Yes, absolutely. You tell me. The look you give me when you know. Right? Like he's looking at this dude right here. And that dude. Those two dudes. Didn't you see the Shitlin's Precious Bell parody account? I don't even know what that is. I'm not going to watch it. He is with us now where he belongs. So he was evil. All right. So the consensus was, and it's interesting that this is his Barron Trump. I should follow him because he might post other interesting shit. I'm not thinking I'm signed in or whatever, but I subscribe. And so this is get a bonus when you sign up. Subscribe to Barron Trump for $5 a month. Like they want you to do that shit. So you gotta pay $5 a month to subscribe to him. I can follow him over here. Here's the follow. This is an interesting question he asks. I mean, he's a demonic looking fuck. He looks like the Antichrist. But anyways, the correct answer is they're all evil, right? I mean, they're potentially good, but they're really acting and embracing the evil within. So let's wrap this up here. There's more stuff coming in about Hegseth. I guess he went on some kind of rant. I don't know if I have a video for that. I mean, not a video of him ranting, but he was threatening to polygraph everybody. There's all this stuff that's being said. There's more coming in every moment. But the bottom line is, let's say Trump was a genius. And I can see my viewership is down. I haven't looked. I don't usually look at the way I have my YouTube set up. The view count is out of my site. So when I go to my page, my video page, it shows whether it's monetized or not. It shows whether it's listed or unlisted. The things at the beginning. And at the far right end, it says how many views there are. But I make it bigger so I can read the comments more easily. So I don't get to see how many views I get per video. But I have to check it every once in a while. And I know it's like the last couple of weeks, it's gone down. I don't know if it has to do with, I have Trumpers here, which I can't imagine I do, or at least people who aren't, kind of aware that Trump possibly could be a complete piece of shit, right? But either way, and then that whole thing with the AI bot, I want to go and have another discussion with the AI bot like I did before. But either way, it is what it is. But it would be really a bummer if I had that many Trumpers still on my channel and like I could only produce. I mean, some of my views from yesterday were it was 2011 views, 262 the day before, 295, 2700, then 3200, 3500, 3200, 3400, 3700, and 4,421. It's all down. I mean, it's, I used to be getting, hundreds of thousands, millions of views. I mean, it's different shit I was putting, and it was different times with YouTube and their algorithms. But recently, between 5,000 and 6,000 views and whatever. And my stuff's just so much better now, and I'm right about so many things, and I'm just in a better frame of mind. But, like, it's just the way it goes, I guess. But anyways, I don't know what I was originally saying here. Well, this is it. I think I might have said this before in another video, but, these things should be repeated anyway. Let's say Trump was great, brilliant, and had the ability to make America great again, all the things he promises, which is silly. I think a lot of Trumpers are like, well, he's at least better than Biden or Harris. Like, that's what they're, left with as a way to not admit that they endorsed a piece of shit guy who's ruining the country. And they're as much complicit as everybody else, and they got completely duped and worked by this guy that everyone else could see through, which is a hard thing to admit. But let's say Trump was as great as he says he is. He still has to win people over, right? Like, he has to win the markets over, and he has to make sure that, because they could easily sabotage his success. And if you're saying they're sabotaging his success, I mean, like I said, hopefully I don't have very many Trumpers left here. Not in the sense that I want to get rid of people, but I mean, you're just, like, I don't know why you would be here if, like, I mean, it's so obvious what's happening, and I'm pointing out the obvious. It must be painful, or whatever. I don't know. Like, people have their own thing. But you have to win people over. Like, you just can't do something great without cooperation and selling it to, the population. And he didn't do a good job of selling the terrorists. And he bullshit. He lied, and it was easily fact-checked. And he can call everything fake news, and his people, his dopey supporters, can call everything fake news. And because, CNN and MSNBC have lost their credibility, as has Fox and the rest of them. And so it's easy to say, all right, dismiss things. So that's where they fucked themselves, which, they're getting what they deserve as well, but they're very happy about it. They want Trump to fail. They want America to fail because, as long as, they would rather have America fail than Trump succeed, right? Like they would rather have America fail than have Trump really do what he was promising to do. And so, it's easy to believe that they would, be jaded, and they're certainly skewed against Trump. But the reality is he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. And, like I said, but if he did, he should have found a way to win people over, because you can't just say fuck you to one half of the country, which Trump has been doing consistently for 9 years, and fuck you to everyone who doesn't agree with you, and then expect to change and make a movement. You just can't do that stuff, right? You have to win people over. Like, I'm saying things that I know are going to bother some people in every video. Some portion of my audience is going to get upset by what I'm saying, because it doesn't matter how many people watch this. It's not going to change a fucking thing. Like, I'm not trying to start a movement. I can talk about the movement that I kind of belong to, which is, I belong to it like internally in the Sajmark meditation and, a path towards spiritual evolution, but that's, each person has to decide that for themselves. Like, I'm well aware of that. So I can talk about it till my, face turns blue. It's not going to change anybody's mind. I just provide people with the information. Like, this is happening. One thing's happening and another thing could happen for the good if we embrace our higher nature. And, I don't have any guarantees or facts or things that I can show to people that, could make it, even if there were facts, people don't want to believe that shit. You would have already been doing this. You would have already tried to connect to the divinity within you. Why haven't you? Why haven't you tried to connect to your soul? The majority of people, like, why didn't I do it, until I was 29? I had some interest in God and spirituality, I had some curiosity. But it's always there. God's always there for everybody. And so why don't people try to connect? Why do people work towards connecting? And I'm not talking through some bullshit religion, sitting in some uncomfortable church and listening to some guy read a mediocre book. Like, that's not fucking connecting divinity. And then telling everyone, yeah, I'm spiritual. Like, actually actively work towards communicating with God and, working towards the internal connection between you and your soul and finding your soul's path. That takes a lot of effort, but it can be easily done. It's just a matter of attitude and wanting to do it. Like, people do all kinds of hard shit. They climb up Mount Everest with fucking frostbite and, they do all kinds of fucking difficult tasks, right? And people are, like, sometimes they'll show like a halftime show of these, people balancing fucking spinning plates and, these acrobats and Cirque du Soleil thing. And they spend hours and hours practicing these almost, impossible looking feats of, whatever it is, right? The intensity of high level athletics and the strength conditioning and the suffering, the pain you have to go through, and to achieve something on an athletic level. The magnificent buildings and things that have been designed, architectural, pieces of art. All the things that humans have accomplished. Yet there are only like a handful of saints. And so, why is that? Like, why is that? So no one's going to do an effective job of selling something that you don't want. Like, there's no market for it, right? And so I talk about it because it's my duty to talk about, but, people buying it or not, or trying it or not, has nothing to do with me. My effort, people want me to give more effort. People ask me, for help or whatever, but they're just looking for attention, and they're not going to do it anyway. Like, I know this from not only my experience, but the years of experience of documentation of what the masters of the Sajmark system suffered for years. And so, like, it's not something that, and people expected them, the masters, to bend over backwards for them, and then they'd walk away and quit, over nothing. It's just, like they want to be recruited. People want to, like, what? I'm not going to kiss anybody's ass for something they're not going to do, and it's not. I don't give a shit if you do it or not, right? It's to your benefit, right? It's like, either we do this or there'll be no people here. Either people rise up to a higher level or they'll try something else, right? And so, I would probably be leaning towards to try something else. It's not up to me, and I'm open to the other. I hope for the that people will do it. But, this is a shift and change of, going away from egoism, which is like in the material pursuit of, pleasure and happiness and, based in, things that are detrimental to your spiritual well-being and your spiritual, your job and your journey and your path, right? And so that's what humans are, consistently doing, choosing the lower when the higher is readily available. And so I don't know if there's anything that can happen to make people choose the higher. And, I hope they do. I hope we, collectively we do. But like, I'm not going to hold my breath. And so, that's why I'm like not selling anything. But somebody like Trump, right, he has to sell something so that, people will do it, right? And so, like, even if it's something that's not palatable, you have to be able to tell people this is going to be so tough for a little bit. And you have to give them time frames, and you have to tell them what it's going to be like. You have to warn them and say, these are the steps, and guarantee them this is how the tariffs are going to work. And, these things, go through it point by point and explain the pathway to success and all these things. But he talks in very vague terms because he doesn't know what he's doing, right? And so, all these dopes that are following him, they just buy into he gives these subtle little hints. Remember when he said a storm is coming? And people were, they were wearing T-shirts with the storm is coming. All these cubies and all these dopes, right? But the storm ain't coming. He was just, he just something he said. Like he says cryptic shit all the time. He says things he doesn't know or mean or whatever, and people run with it. Like he's, the way that Forrest Gump was, running around and he was saying shit. People are taking it and making bumper stickers out of it. He had no idea, right? He's like a ignoramus, so. And so, like I said, if you want to have a movement, then you have to explain and win people over. But, the real movement that's afoot, which is people connecting with the divinity within, no one's buying that. Like no one wants that because they'd already be doing it. We'd have a whole society of saints and Jesuses and Buddhas and Krishnas and, higher developed souls. We'd have everyone be connected to God, and there'd be a completely different everything. Everything would be different about our lives. And the potential's there, we just don't want it. And so, like I said, either something's going to happen, so we do want it, or, we're fucked. Like we'll be in the evolutionary trash bin of bad ideas and bad, a group of species that just wasn't there. We became, counterproductive. We became a cancer on our world, on our universe, and had to be excised out because we couldn't reverse our negative downward trend. And so, kudos, toodles. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramano, definitely born for the apocalypse. And the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.